Stalingrad, Stalingrad, Stalingrad. Nothing else is being talked about. More and more bad news arrives here, through the division, to the regiment, and then to our unit. Here was the Russian, there was the Russian, and we are sitting here and twirling thumbs. If we put together the remaining tanks into a large battle group, we then should be able to drive out the Russian there and relieve our encircled comrades. I discussed this with Schmidt, but he thinks that we would then weaken the front here in the southeast. The distance was also enormous. A trek over land wasn't possible. Yes, all that is correct. But here, one could stop the Russian with anti-tank guns and infantry. There wouldn't have to be tanks involved. Everyone has their own arguments that way, but we don't arrive at a common denominator. First Lieutenant Kraus joins in and listens to what we talk about. He states that those up above would have come up with an idea and the Iran would be swept back to the Ural, he explains to us. Well, certainly he knows more than we do. Nevertheless, it still does not sound very optimistic. I'm back in the repair shop and helping out. We don't have a lot of tanks ready for combat, and what we have is only thrown forward in an emergency. We have fixed strong points, and that way we are able to keep the Russian from knocking on our door here. As long as he occupying himself with Stalingrad, we have quiet, and one could now actually create a focus of attack here. But supply is insufficient and the replacement parts are only arriving sparingly. We are also hoping for new tanks for the unit. With 3 comrades, I am assigned to pick up materials for the tank repair shop. With a heavy tow tractor and a large flatbed trailer, we get on our way to the nearest train station. Spare engines have supposedly arrived, and further most urgently needed materials. We also take a field car along in which a few infantry soldiers are seated so that we are not experiencing any bad surprises. Early in the morning, it's a go. It's cold and the wind is blowing steadily over this barren land. It's close to a 7-hour ride, if we get through all right. Here we have less to account for partisans, but I'm always cautious nevertheless. After 5 hours we stop at some Russian houses. The farmer's family there looks at us wide-eyed. We make ourselves understood, and my Russian by now is sufficient to get some hot stew for us in exchange for cigarettes and chocolate. The farmer is fearful and right away wants to give us everything. I wave it off and explain that we 8 men just want something warm to eat and to warm ourselves up a bit inside the hut. After an hour, we are replenished and warmed up. Onward it goes. The wind is letting up, the sky is gradually clearing up. It doesn't take long, we spot airplanes in the sky. The field car has a machine gun mounted and is able to defend itself, but we with the heavy hauler have nothing. Wait and see. If those aren't Russians, then all is well. Already there is a rumble and 2 Messerschmitt 109s rush by over our heads. We wave and the pilot lets the wings wiggle. That's really something. The knights of the air, daredevils, these fighter pilots. Quickly they're out of sight, though it doesn't take long till we hear a buzzing again. But this time it's none of ours. Russian airplanes. And they've spotted us. That means, as good as possible, the vehicles into cover and out of the crates. Already the onboard guns start hammering and the shells impact around us. No one is hit, only the flatbed trailer has suffered some damage. Already the Russians are turning again and approaching anew. With a flare gun, one of us shoots red in the direction of the Russian planes. It doesn't help much, but maybe the fighters are still nearby. Again, the onboard guns are rattling. We are pressing ourselves tight to the ground. I hear screams. One of the soldiers from the car is hit. In the meantime, they've brought the machine gun into position and are firing at the planes. Again, we shoot off flares to confuse the pilots. Our machine guns bark relentlessly, but apparently it doesn't phase the planes. Then, on the approach, flames suddenly appear out of the one's engine and the Russian starts to spin out of control. 100 meters behind us, he impacts in a giant fireball. Low above us, the two Messerschmitt 109 from earlier are racing past with an incredible speed. Finally, we jump up and cheer. The aerial battle is a spectacle, but the last Russian apparently is no beginner. He's turning and twisting the plane like the devil, and both fighters are having trouble keeping up. Indeed, after 5 minutes, one Messerschmitt 109 is smoking and has to make an emergency landing. Now it's just 1 against 1. But apparently the German pilot is better, and after a wild chase, the last Russian flyer is finally shot down. Actually, the Russian jumps out, a parachute circles to the ground. We jump into the field car while the infantry soldiers are taking care of the wounded comrade by the hauler. I step on the gas, we speed toward the parachute. My comrade grabs the machine pistol, better safe than sorry. 500 meters, 400 meters, 100 meters. We slow down and wait until we know exactly where the Russian came down. The pilots are also armed, so watch out. He hits the ground and tucks and rolls. He attempts to draw his pistol, but through the tangled parachute harness, he can't reach it. We jump out, and with the machine pistol, he receives a hard blow to the head. He's out of commission for now. We cut him out of the harness and take a look at the parachute. Not bad. I also snag the pistol. My comrade takes the pilot boots, and now the Russian is wearing nothing but socks. His plane impacted further back behind us. It's not worth it driving over there. We tie up the unconscious pilot and drive back. The German pilot performed an emergency landing with his plane nearby and approaches our heavy hauler. He is cheerfully greeted. First, we fetch the schnapps out of the supply box. He tells that the Russian hadn't hit him, but that his plane had engine damage. That's why he came down. Since he knew us close by, it was safe to land here. We also take care of the wounded and lay him on the top of the hauler. He's wounded in the arm and leg, but he'll make it. The Air Force lieutenant drives with the field car back over to his plane and grabs his gear as well as the classified material out of it. The plane is left. It will be picked up tomorrow by the repair unit. It would fit onto the flatbed trailer, but we don't know how we should load such a plane. Onward it goes. We still need 3 hours to the train station. There we meet an Air Force soldier on a motorcycle who's supposed to take the pilot back to the airfield. The other pilot had already reported where he had to go to locate us. That's how quickly things can happen. In the meantime, the Russian pilot is awake again and appears to be very angry, having been shot down. Regardless, the fighter pilot treats the Russian with respect. That's apparently how it is amongst the pilots. Possibly the Russian is also salty because he no longer has any boots. We bid the lieutenant farewell and take our wounded man over to the military hospital. The MPs are called and we hand over the Russian pilot. He's probably got a decent headache because the blow with the machine pistol had been pretty hard. He has a large laceration on top of his head. Someone still grabs a pair of old busted boots out of the holder box. That way the pilot has at least a little bit of footwear. He nods grumpily and accepts the boots. Oh well, but he's still alive, and that should count. Report what happened and refer to the lieutenant of the Air Force. At the train station we talk with the quartermaster. He shows us what we are to take along. Big crates with tank engines, spare parts of all kinds and tools. We get everything loaded, but I'm thinking we are going to stay overnight and we'll drive back tomorrow morning. I don't want to make the trip in the dark. All said and done. Report to the town command post and receive quarters. We only receive a meager supper. The supply guys don't want to hand anything out. Somewhat discouraged and hungry, we sit together and play cards. Suddenly the door flies open and an Air Force Master Sergeant steps inside with a big basket. He asks whether we were the tank guys from Mostock. We nod, and he places the basket with ham, bread, canned fish, and schnapps on the table. With greetings from the squadron, I am to tell you from the lieutenant, explains the Master Sergeant to us. God damn, that's something for a change. We split everything up fair and square, and after an hour we slip stuffed and slightly inebriated into a cozy slumber. The next morning, getting up doesn't come quite as easy. After a morning wash and a mug of coffee and dry bread, it's going back to Mostock. We are rumbling through the landscape and all remains quiet. No planes, no tanks and no Russians on horseback. In the early afternoon we are back and report to the repair unit officer with the materials. He's elated since we are able to get possibly 4 of our 5 tanks running again with the spare parts. I sign off and go to my quarters. Enough for today. Time again to write a few letters. What might Gudrun be doing? How are the parents? What's my sister up to? Since we are probably going to celebrate Christmas here, we should prepare for it so that everything looks pretty. So we're already making Christmas decorations and fixing everything up nice so that we may welcome baby Christ on the 24th. Certainly, there will be a little celebration with the officers and good food. I want to see to it that I still organize a few bottles of cognac. I know that the pioneers next door have found an entire cellar full of bottles. I will pack something to trade and go over there. From my stash I still have cigarettes and the parachute as well as the pistol from the pilot. That should work out. After some tough negotiations, I receive 5 bottles of cognac and 3 bottles of champagne for the items. That's all right. That will be enough for the Christmas party. Now it's time for some sleep. The next morning we are at roll call. Another attack on one of our smaller outposts. We have to move out. I am assigned a Panzer III and my old tank gunner. Driver and loader are assigned to me, and with a giant grin on his face, Schmidt reports to me as a radio operator. Well, that's going to be something. But well, it will all work out. I instill in him that's inside the tank I'm the boss, which he acknowledges with a loud, "Yes, sir, non-commissioned officer." I turn away because I also have to grin. Mount up, man. It's a go once again.